Thank you guys for being here again. I know you've heard that multiple times today. My name is John Jakubik, one of the tech advisors here at Opkalla. We have a fantastic panel for you guys today when it comes to developing IT leaders now and in the future. I think outside of just IT, this stuff is also going to pertain to leadership in general, right? Moving things forward, purpose-filled lives, roles, that type of thing. And I know, again, we have a fantastic group up here that's going to be able to exemplify those very things. All right, so real quick, 30 to 60 seconds. Each person is going to introduce themselves, who they are, what they're about, all that good stuff, and then we'll jump right in. Got a small group, obviously, so we can make this interactive and fun, and again, before we head outside and have some fun. So all good. Jeff, you don't mind starting us off there, brother, and we'll go from there.
Jeff French, I'm the CIO for Elliott Davis. We're a public accounting consulting services firm based in the Southeast. Been at Elliott Davis about 10 years, most of that time as a network engineer, leader of infrastructure, team of sysadmins, and then the past 3 years became CIO. I'm going to do my best not to talk about AI in this panel, so no promises. It might come up, but try not to.
All good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Rachel?
Rachel Reddy, AVP of Digital Strategy and Operations at CareSource. They're headquartered out of Ohio, but I have the fortune of working remotely from home and traveling occasionally. I haven't quite hit 90 days, so I'm still learning the org, but organization with a massive heart. We focus on offering state Medicaid plans, but do a lot in social determinants of health and supporting the whole person and getting them on their journey and all that good stuff. I didn't ever mean to get into technology. I have a public policy degree, and I just can't seem to keep myself away from like trying to fix the root of the problem in the system somewhere. And so here I am.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rachel.
Nice. Grant Walsh, Director of IT Operations, Infrastructure Security for Flow Control Group. We're based right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We specialize in anything that moves within a factory facility, data, gas, air, fluid, whatever. We are very M&A happy. We like to acquire at least a company or two a month, so a lot of integrations and mergers there. I've been in IT 20 plus years, primarily on the infrastructure operations security side, primarily in leadership roles. So I will just try to piggyback off these guys and make John look good.
Very good. There you go. There you go. I'm just here for you, G. That's all I am. I'm just here for you, man. All right. I will kick things off, y'all. Rachel, I want to start with you. Ladies first, of course. Let's talk about qualities that you see in IT leaders real quick, right? So I think whether it's a hiring perspective, maybe personnel on your team, anything in between, right? Maybe what qualities you look for in emerging IT leaders, team members, that type of thing, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, I think there's two big things that I typically look for: curiosity and a sense of ownership or responsibility. So if I think in the earlier panel today, we talked about, the folks you want on your team are the ones who are just going to dig in and they're going to learn. And I love when that's matched with a sense of responsibility and ownership. We don't just leave things at somebody's doorstep and hope that the next person picks it up, but that you really carry and own that ball until it's safely transitioned off into another person. And so those are qualities that I think are a little bit harder to teach folks. You can definitely hold them accountable, have really great open conversations. I use a tool called the accountability dial that lets me have really frequent and often conversations to try to get into those two things. It starts with a mention. And so that's coming out of that conversation, which is a lot easier to do when you're in person, but when you're on the phone from a conference call, sometimes it's that quick dial back right on Zoom, right? That's like, hey man, you did great on this, next time you need to touch that, right? So there's that mention, and then you can kind of crank up the heat of well, I've mentioned this a couple of times, now we need to talk about what can we do to change that. And so we, before we get to those really aggressive things where we're dealing with severe personnel issues, it's giving people those early, often really quick feedback mechanisms that just let them nudge their own behavior. And if somebody's curious, if they're willing to own an issue, they'll take off.
Yeah, that's great. Jeff, Grant, anything else there, fellas?
I would add in, we try to identify leadership potential. Two things to look for: communication and translation. Folks who can communicate, not just in techie terms, but actually take that, whatever we're trying to do, translate it to business value, to translate it into non-IT folks who can write a email without making it really just blurby. Actually, understand your audience, and take that same, like I said, and the same thing part of communication is translating what you're doing. Why are we doing this? To both ways. take what executives are telling you and translate it back to your team, and the same way translate it back out to the business that you're supporting.
Yeah, I was going to say communications, hands down. I mean, it's to some of us, I think it's straightforward. It's easy. It's not easy. It's never easy. Communications is not easy. Let me rephrase that. But it comes more naturally to know your audience, like Grant said. To many people, it does not come easy, and I think a lot of people in technology, it does not come easy for recognizing their strengths. The other thing that I look for in combination with that is someone who's not too timid, change averse. They're often very bold. They have the right conversations, and when it's time to act, they act, and they feel empowered to do so. That's one of the things that I'm continually working on, is empowering team members to feel like they can do that.
Yeah, that's great. Let me ask you all this and go a little bit deeper. When it comes to, obviously you guys are in higher up roles, probably hiring a little bit, or at least some part of your team is. You talk about curiosity, communication, all these different things. Great. Rachel, you touched on the dial that you use to kind of get those things out of people. Maybe intangibly or just a feeling thing. How do you identify that in maybe potential hires, or again, people already on your team that, okay, they can take the next step, they have the potential with these different capacities to move up? Any more context, I guess, into that? Because I think the hardest thing is just getting the right people in the door and letting them do their thing. But how do you identify the right people to get in the door first and then roll from there? So any perspective when it comes to that right off the bat?
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Really,
Great.
really tough. I mean, I think so much of that, is intuition. A lot of it's just intuition and gut feel, and then doing due diligence by like going out and looking at their LinkedIn, saying, oh, they know so and so, give them a call, and what do you think about them, and getting some background on how they performed in certain situations. But a lot of it is and getting other leaders involved as well. Sometimes from your team, outside your team. Hey, what do you see in them? What is your perspective of this person? Just having a totally non-technical conversation. How did you feel in that interaction?
Yeah, that's great. Anyone else? All good? Yeah. All good. Great. Grant, I'm going to come to you with this one. Purpose and motivation. Again, y'all are at positions now where you've kind of climbed through the ranks, did the dirty work to get to where you're at now. So I feel like purpose and motivation is definitely probably a part of your intangibles in some way, shape, or form. I'll call y'all the coaches of your teams, right? So you guys have that great. Maybe your players not so much sometimes. How do you pull that purpose out? What does the motivation look like? Do you give them a pep talk every time they walk in the door? I know it's kind of your style, Grant. So, but again, pulling that stuff out, maybe identifying those purposes, helping them identify those themselves. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, the motivation side, I think it's taking the time to understand what motivates each employee. Every employee has a different motivation, no different than raising a child. It's everyone reacts differently, right?
Okay.
Somebody may motivate, they want the gift card, or somebody else wants the extra time off, or somebody wants this. It's just understanding what motivates them. I think making, as nerdy as it sounds, gamifying it as much as you can. Yeah. Bringing a little competition into the team from a motivation standpoint to try to beat each other. Some people don't buy into it, which is fine. They don't want to compete. That's cool too.
Yep.
But purpose-wise, just having a common goal, helping them understand what we do, how we impact the business. On the infrastructure operations and security side, a lot of times that's hard. Because what you do, you're the roads and bridges guys, if you will. You're the guys that sit and guys and gals in the back that don't get acclamation for what you do.
Yeah.
Servers, everybody likes servers until they go down. Everybody likes the network until it goes down.
Yeah, that's right.
You're the roads and bridges guys, so you don't get a lot of fame there. So how do you keep those guys on point and with focus? So service desk talking to them about how you speed up your SLAs, your tickets, what that means for less downtime to business, how they can meet their goals. Or security is somewhat easier to drive purpose because you're out to fight the bad guys. Your purpose is to keep the business safe. Infrastructure folks, a little different, more uptimes, but also coming up with more solutions and just trying to tie in what they're doing day to day to the purpose of the business so they understand how they're driving value. So they're not just aimlessly walking around like, hey, I'm putting a new server and I'm moving this stuff to the Azure. This is great, this is cool.
Yeah.
But give them purpose to how they're actually impacting the business.
Yeah, that's great. Rachel, Jeff, anything there?
I think, we all touched on communication is a big part of what we look for in those leaders, and part of what helps you elevate to that level is the fact that you can communicate. And so it's our responsibility to make sure that that comes back down to the employees and that they can see where they align to that vision and that execution. So sometimes it's giving them an experience. It's getting them out behind their desk, and it's, go ride with somebody in the call center. Go sit with somebody from a sales pitch perspective and getting them outside of their day-to-day. And And sometimes it's just being able to bring those stories back and tell them in a compelling way to the team and connect those dots for them and help them see where that makes an impact. I think on the motivation side, another thing that I've started to use more recently are things like values and understanding what those things might be. And it's actually come about from a negative context. I couldn't understand why somebody on my team was rubbing me the wrong way. And so it was like, oh, I have a major value around responsibility, and this person doesn't seem to be sharing this value with me. And so now it's like picking that curiosity of like, oh, okay, what does that person value? I need to go understand more about what that is, and then I need to start figuring out how to tap into that and ignite that.
Yeah. Great. Jeff, anything?
Yeah, the values I think is key. Our firm has gone through this exercise of trying to give everyone, take the Clifton Strengths assessment, and just using that in my own meetings with my team, senior leaders, and understanding what their strengths are, their values, what motivates them. Because I think to what Grant said, the best compliment you can get in an infrastructure type role is like silence, usually. Like that's, everything is awesome when there's silence, right? And during the pandemic, our team was getting a lot of praise left and right, and we didn't know what to do with it. Like there was a lot of like, oh, it's weird, go away, like sort of. But I think that also, that praise, I did see them light up with that. And I've actually talked to our CEO a couple of times and said, hey, these guys went above and beyond. They worked straight through the weekend. This happened. Would you mind giving them a call? And we're small enough, luckily, that that's possible. And just that little 5 minutes of his time made their month. So.
No, that's great. I'm gonna go off script because y'all got me thinking about 97 different things here. And I'm gonna gas up our managing partners real quick. Here at Opkalla, talking about values, things like that. I think one thing our partnership and just teammates in general do a great job at is, there's two sides of the story, right? The X's and O's, the tactical side, then the purpose and the motivation side, right? Having those conversations, building people up, et cetera. And again, I think more times than not, our partnership and leadership actually leans more toward the purpose and motivation side versus the tactical side of our job sometimes. And I very much appreciate that. I value that big time. So my question to y'all is this: if you looked at, I guess, those two spectrums, is it 80-20, purpose, motivation, X's and O's? Is it right down the middle? Does it depend? Any insight on that perspective? Because again, I think, it's going to be situationally dependent, but is there maybe some tactic or way you guys go about navigating those conversations or that style to match what your team needs in those moments and things like that? Great question, John. Good.
It's good.
It's deep. Yeah.
So I've got a gentleman on my team today, right, who doesn't feel valued from a monetary perspective, and it's going to take me moving some stuff in order to get him there. Is that what's keeping him here right now? Because he hasn't been making enough? No, like he's attached to the mission somewhere. But at some point, if people don't feel it in their pocketbook that you value them in a way that's meaningful to them in their everyday life, you will lose that person. But conversely, like I could pay my staff infinitely more and it's not going to attach them to the mission anymore. And so I do think it is a balance. Sometimes it's also about giving them new opportunities to own or go do something cool. And so it's not a financial, but it's a little more tangible than just like, let's have a warm, fuzzy conversation. It's a way to stretch yourself and feel like, oh, I got myself in over my head and now I've grown, and that always feels good.
Cool. Love it. All good? Great. Jeff, I'm gonna come to you with this one because I know, you wanted to hit on this a little bit. Operational excellence, also business innovation. I feel like sometimes those things can run parallel, maybe they conflict sometimes. One has to take precedence over the other, especially I feel like in our field, right? Operational excellence is, hey, we've had a tool set in place for a number of years, it's working great. We also realize we have to take a next step forward with something better, newer, sexier, whatever, right? So that's gonna conflict with that innovation side of things. How do you manage that? Is that tough? Is that easy? How do you go about doing that on a day-to-day?
Yeah, I'll just share, I guess, my own personal experience in this realm. So came into the role 3 years ago, and the plan I set out for myself was, step one, identify all the problems that we have. What's broken? Let's go fix as many of those as we can. Second step, okay, let's work on building more solid foundations for our systems, right? So right-sizing our spend in different areas and investing in different technologies, not anything necessarily innovative, but making things, number one, more stable, more easy to integrate with, getting rid of as many legacy systems or moving legacy systems to platforms that were more easy to integrate with or more secure, et cetera. And I've gotten to that stage where I set out 3 years ago. And so it's just now I feel like I'm able to spend time focusing on innovation. We luckily have a very strong team that's been focused on innovation, and they have pretty much run themselves without any guidance from me. They're embedded within the business, and they're doing great. However, we've now reached this point where I am, and they are where they are, and what we've come to realize is most of what they've been focusing on still is truly operational excellence, even though it's driving automations, efficiencies, et cetera, not true innovation. So what I'm trying to say is I don't really think there's true innovation until you've gotten to operational excellence. And then to say, to think about a balance, it's not like this is balance, right? You're not doing like this. It's like a swing over here and a swing over here and a swing over here, right? So I'm on the swing now where I'm focused on innovation. I'm in a good spot. I feel really good about that, and the team is excited about it because we're going, and not going to say those two letters, thinking about those type of things.
AI, is that what you're?
Yeah, right.
I was just wondering. It was a hunch,
but yeah. So that's sort of how I approach that. And again, I know I'm gonna get down this path, right? And then something's going to happen over here on the operational side that's going to need. Not that anything's necessarily going to break, but it takes one fire and your credibility gets not totally shot, but you lose a lot of it quick. So it's taken me 3 years to get here, so I got to maintain both now. But over here for now.
Grant, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on where you're at in the journey of the organization, right? Depending on what you're focusing on, whether you're innovation or operational excellence. Most of my career has been in the rebuild stage. I like to build stuff, which is why I came to Flow.
Because at Flow, you're newer, right?
Yeah,
fresh. There you go. Yeah, so you're kind of there.
8 months, yeah.
Yep.
But it's another rebuild. I love to rebuild. So if you rebuild, you can do all the innovation you want because everything's innovation.
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, you're building some operational excellence while you go because you're trying to think about what do I need to innovate and what scales well for the organization, what will allow us not to have to keep doing innovation every year. Should do some sort of innovation, but in that stage of rebuilding, you can be more innovative and while still doing operational excellence. However, I've been in some organizations early on that were more established, more set, and your innovation is a little slower because you've got to maintain that operational excellence a little more readily, more easily.
Gotcha. Yeah. Good. Rachel, coming to you on this one, talking about upskilling and reskilling, right? We kind of talked about the intangibles, purpose, motivation, et cetera. Maybe some of the tangibles when it comes to, okay, I've had somebody in a role for 5 years, they're really good at it. I see the potential that they could be better in some capacity by upskilling and reskilling, what have you. I guess what does that look like? How do you go about that? Or what's your perspective when it comes to taking on those challenges?
I think we have to put our money where our mouth is. If we really want people to upskill, we've got to carve out time for it. And we have to protect that alongside with them. So the way that I've made that work the best for my teams in the past has made that, a cordoned off part of their Friday to continue to go out and upskill and earn a new certification and put some funding behind that. Sometimes it's a little bit of exposure too. There's a lot you can do by just having a +1 in meetings and getting them exposure to conversations in the organization they might not otherwise have. So if it's a hard skill, I think it's just sectioning off time, making it a priority, letting them practice. If it's that soft skill, then it's come into the meeting, be the scribe, get access to the room, and start to see what people at a different level think like.
Yeah, totally. Did y'all agree there? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the employee has to own it.
Yeah.
You got to want it. I mean, I can't pull you into training. I can't pull you up and upskill. You have to own it. You have to want it. I mean, there's a lot depending on
Is that a challenge sometimes?
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
I want this job. Well, you've got to learn to do the job. I'm not going to pull you into training. I'm not going to force you to take the certification. You've got to want it because any certification, you can go take a crash course and get certified, but did you learn anything? Does that add value to me by doing that? But you have to own your development. I've owned my development. You own your development. If you own it, I'll advocate for you all day. We'll advocate for the funds. We'll advocate for the time, but you have to own that yourself.
Yep, gotcha. Jeff, anything there?
Yeah, with those people that I work with regularly, and those who show what Grant was talking about and who show that they want it, it's very easy to, I won't say it's easy, but it's you see a path forward for upskilling or reskilling. But I had an interesting situation happen earlier this year. We had an employee he'd been a long-time employee, mostly a very good, solid employee, but occasionally would get himself into trouble. He was like one step away from a performance improvement plan, just would get into conflicts with employees, just over like matters of principle that it really didn't concern him, and we'd talk to him, coach him, and I thought he was basically, he was a support person. I thought that was like the end of his career. He was going to be there or he was going to leave. And I had the guy who leads my infrastructure team said, look, I see potential in him to come to my team. I think he's got what it takes. He's a good communicator. He's got some rough edges. We can smooth those out. I'll spend a lot of time with him. I am sticking my neck out for him. And I said, we talked about it for about a month. And I finally said, look, if you want to do it, you go for it.
Yeah.
I'll support you. And he came through flying colors. He's been promoted. He's on a new team. On this infrastructure team, and just is like a sponge now. He's learning new stuff every day. I didn't think it was going to happen. So, sometimes I got to rely on people on the team to identify that, because I can't know everybody that's got this potential. So, it was one of those situations where didn't think it would happen in a million years.
Yeah.
I'm glad it did, because I like the guy as a whole. But,
yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Very good. Let's shift gears a little bit. We talked about collaboration a lot today. And Jeff, I'll go back to you real quick on this one. I think sometimes in IT it's easy to see the need and the want for innovation, moving things forward, different tool sets, solutions, whatever the case may be. Is that the case in terms of working with other departments to do that, meaning sales, HR, C-suite, whatever the case may be? You have to sell that a little bit more. How does that look when it comes to working with other departments on the innovation piece, maybe not just technology-wise, but overall?
Yeah. So, I mentioned earlier we have this group that's kind of focused on developing new ideas or improving operational efficiencies. It's a team of developers and analysts that are pretty much embedded within the different business units. And like I said, the high-performing team, they really run their own business, as it were. But the finance team and the HR team really were not included in that. So this is more professional services, so our clients serving people, finding ways for those people to work better, smarter, serve our clients better. And so the finance team and HR team had been somewhat neglected. And right around the same time I was promoted in my role, there were two people, one new CHRO that came from the outside, and our finance director was new to his role as well. So we all spent the past 3 years kind of focusing on stabilizing our teams and getting things, right-sizing, making things right. And now, during that, though, we talked a lot. And we built a really strong relationship. We had similar ideas about how to use technology. They're both very technology forward, bring a lot of great ideas. And we're now marching to the same drummer now. So it's great that we have those relationships. We have really strong relationships now with not just these folks that were sort of operational leaders that were working with this innovation team, but also our practice leaders who are more focused on the bottom line, the business goals, the strategic goals. They're coming to meetings now. They're interested. They're asking me to go to lunch instead of vice versa.
Yeah, there you go.
So, like I said, it's taking time, but I'm happy about where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Rachel, Grant, anything there?
I think that was pretty awesome.
Summed it up.
Yep.
Yeah, he's perfect. Okay. He's just that good, huh? Very good.
Yeah, he is. It's a little hot over here.
Yeah, that's right. Grant, coming to you here. Leadership style when it pertains to the younger generation. You are young. You are phenomenally looking. The whole thing. But maybe when it comes to those a little bit younger than you,
Yes.
what are we looking at when it comes to maybe adjusting, or not adjusting, just having, I guess, a social awareness aspect to be able to still lead maybe different people from different generations, if you will.
I treat them all the same.
Yeah.
I try to be honest. I get it from a Communication's different, motivation's different, but from a leadership standpoint, treat them all the same. I don't want one person who's just say something different. You all get the same thing. Motivation by what may inspire that person to drive more, or what they want in terms of instant gratification may be different, but leadership style, we're all going to come together. We're all going to work together. Nobody's going to be treated differently based on age, or because at any one point, somebody was that younger generation.
Yep.
So if you find a leadership style that works, and you find something that's motivating everybody's coming together for that common interest of delivering customer service or innovation or whatever the case may be, leadership style, for me at least, always stays the same.
Okay.
And we do that when we talk about the interview. This is what you're coming into.
Yeah.
You're coming into this role where I'm going to be the same with everybody. I don't
Yeah.
care if you're fresh out of college or you've been here, you've been doing it for 20 years. It's going to be the same thing. Now, you may, from an experience and the way I lean on you more based on your knowledge may be different,
Yeah.
but you're going to be, the leadership's the same way.
Yeah.
For me at least, it's always going to be the same. I treat all my employees, all my team members the exact same way, lead them the same way. Communication may be different because I try to pick up some slang, that's
There you go.
cap, yo.
Ooh. What else we got? Give us
That's
one
very
more.
sus,
Oh,
so I heard
sus. Okay.
sus, yeah.
Good.
I learned something from
Good.
kids at
Good.
school trying to say
Slang 101 after
Right.
this
You're welcome.
session here. Okay,
Yo
good.
cap, I think it's another one too.
There you go.
Yeah, try to be cool, but whatever.
Okay,
But
good.
It really is overall, the leadership style stays the same. It's the same goal, trying to grow people, want to see them develop, growing the team together so everybody works together for the same common goal and supporting the business. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Rachel, leadership style, anything to add there?
I think it's easy for what is on the surface to get in the way of recognizing that somebody's delivering value. And so if I find myself or somebody on my team is like, oh, well, that person's not dressing the way I would expect them to dress in the office, or the stuff that I think typically happens for younger generation is that's not what's really bothering you. What's really bothering you is somewhere they're not performing, they're not delivering on an expectation. If you're not holding them accountable to deliver what you need, then you're going to start getting nitpicky about why are they on their phone in the middle of a meeting or whatever. You don't know if they're checking notes, if they're doing OneNote, if they have some cool new app that they're recording the conversation and it's feeding to ChatGPT and it's going to give them a summary and they're going to be 10 steps ahead of you when they walk out the door. It just feels like they're not paying attention to the conversation. And so I think that, coming back to treating people the same, yeah, but part of that is because I'm focused on what you produce and where you contribute value.
right.
Jeff, anything there?
Yeah, I'd say the leadership style, like Grant said, is the same. Maybe communications happen differently.
Yeah.
So, when I meet with younger staff, I say, look, if you want to meet, we can do Teams. We can go, if you're here in the office, we can go get a room.
Yeah.
Or if you just want to type on Teams, we can do that as well. And whatever works for you, I'm good with it. And just understanding that sometimes preferred method of communication makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to do face-to-face, but,
Yeah.
Yep. That's great.
Some of that's too, the frequency of communication, right? I hate saying the younger generation, but somewhat instant feedback. Some just need it. They need to know how they just did, how that, to your point earlier, but how'd that meeting just go? How to do there? How'd this project go? How'd they go? They need that instant gratification. Whereas some folks, been doing it for a while. You can tell me, we'll talk about it in our one-on-one
Right.
or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
They send you
Yeah.
the three faces, the sad face. Which one do you rate, man?
Right, exactly.
I love it. Rachel, I'm coming to you on this one here, talking about mentors, and maybe taking a look back a little bit, right? Because I think when you look at leaders now, they all came from somewhere, had mentors themselves, et cetera. When you think about your mentors and maybe events or roles or what have you that kind of got you to now, was a big life lesson or whatever the case may be, anything to add there that you think may benefit the group as far as a lesson or what a mentor told you or who that was, give them their roses real quick or something like that?
Yeah. Some of it I think I've already touched on. It's the people that let me get into the room and see that next level conversation. That was massively helpful. I don't love rosy feedback. And so my favorite mentors are the ones that would tell me how it was. Yeah, you're killing it on these things, but this is where you need to focus. That gave me something to chew on and to really up my game on. So I've got a mentor now. I refer to him as Papa Bear. He's well known here in the Charlotte community.
Is it Grant? Or?
But it's a constant. I can call anytime, and I just need a Papa Bear moment. Talk me down. I'm upset about something stupid. It's probably not whatever's bothering me is not whatever's really bothering me, and those people are phenomenal. You need those mentors. You need sponsors, and you need people who challenge you. So. I had a colleague that this wasn't like a mentor, it was just somebody at my level, but that just gave me a hard time all the time. And it was with love, but it was hard to have those conversations. It toughened me up. It was really good for me.
Yeah, that's great. Let me ask you about Papa Bear real quick. Was that something that you sought out, meaning you asked him to be that? Did he become that for you in between? How did that kind of come about?
It was introduction, and he ended up becoming a boss, and it just the friendship alongside being colleagues sort of happened naturally over time. But I think to this person's credit, he was just very consistent. He modeled great leadership. There were people on the team, I'm sure, probably like just ground his nerves, but he would always keep it cool. He would treat us all equally fairly. He would give everybody a chance to step up to the plate. And I knew that he had a sense of fairness about him, and that's what I came to rely on him for.
Awesome. Jeff, anything there, mentor-wise or lesson-wise?
Exactly what Rachel said. I had one leader, probably halfway through my career, prior employer, that up until that point, performance year review time would roll around, and I'd go through it and always get glowing reviews. And I'd be like, well, what should I improve on? What do I need to do to go to the next level to get that promotion? Oh, you're doing great, I'm like, and so not really knowing what I could be doing to elevate myself. And then I worked for this guy's name's Ken, still talk to Ken occasionally, and he was the first person to give me real feedback and would put it in my review, even though, that's kind of taboo because it's your permanent record, whatever that is. And he would ding me on things. He'd be like, you do this and you do this and blah, blah, blah. And, it would work on a path for me to be promoted. He would actually say, okay, if you can meet these objectives and correct these behaviors, whatever, this is your path forward. It's yours to make or break.
Yep.
And that, to me, I never forgot that, and I use that with my team now.
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect. Grant, what you got?
Worked for one of my first jobs here in Charlotte, with AAA. I always thought I was a servant leader, like servant leadership, serve a team, serve others, serve the company, serve your customers. But didn't actually take it into effect until I sat down for my first one-on-one with him. And I remember the last question he said, we went through, because typically in a one-on-one you're talking about what you do, how are your goals, what are your goals for next week. What can I do for you? Oh, you mean what can you do for me? You're my boss. I'm doing stuff for you.
Yeah.
You hired me. Like, no, what can I do for you? Okay. I don't know. Let me think about it. Let me get back to next week. But it was a question every week. I took that one question and stuck it into all my future one-on-ones, all my employees. Like the tone of the conversation has changed, right? Because it showed like he cared about my development, my well-being, not just at the company, but what can I do? How are you okay? Can I help you personally? Can I help you, not financially, but can I help you in general on your way? And I was like, wow, that's powerful. So I started doing that with my team, and the feedback I got from my team was like, I never heard that asked before.
Yeah.
It was just a game changer. So then it started making me change. How can I be more of that servant leadership? How can I incorporate that more to help my team? And even to the standpoint of what we talked to some of the business leaders, like, what can I do to help you?
Yep.
Round out your conversation. Oh, well,
Yep.
I don't know. Let me think about it.
Yep.
So it hits people off guard often because usually it's about what can I get for you? How are you helping me? How can I help you? And then move on. But what can I do for you? What can I
Did
do?
that make you go harder for that guy?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
the conversation got deeper about in terms of where I want to go, career-wise or development. And for someone to say, if you develop in a certain role and that role's not here, I'll support you going elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And doing so in a way that in a caring way, not like, fire you, get you out of here.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But in a way of like, hey, I want to see you grow.
Yep.
And then actually to come forward and actually do that because my next role was his role. He wasn't going anywhere and help me get the same role somewhere else. So
Yep.
It's powerful. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
We're going to go one more, then open it up for questions here before we wrap this up. Let's take a step back again, maybe looking at yourselves when you were first starting out, 22, 23, 24, whatever the case may be. If you want to give some advice to that person then, or maybe some of us who are a little bit younger, as far as advice moving up the ranks or just leadership qualities, what have you, maybe just something that pops out in your mind that you wish you would have known back then, that you obviously know now. What does that look like? Jeff, I'll start with you, brother.
Yeah, so thinking back to like college, right? I studied computer science, and like every computer science student thought I was going to create video games, and that didn't happen clearly. So
There's still time, Jeff.
yeah. So I remember I took I think one economics course, one intro to business course, and I was just like, you know what? I'm never going to use this, blah blah blah, and never really thought of myself as getting into any sort of leadership position. I was an engineer through and through, so I thought, and find myself here and wish I'd gone back and done more business courses, got myself an MBA, something like that, because I am playing catch up big time when I sit in a board meeting and we hear about the business, and I'm like going back and writing terms down and looking them up. I'm doing YouTube videos. I'm like, okay, I understand that concept now. We're going to talk to our CFO and asking him for advice. So
Yep, love it. Appreciate that. Rachel, anything there?
Two things. One, take more risks. It's never as bad as you think it's going to be if it goes wrong. So just try something a little bit different. And I had a really good second one. I'll remember it after Grant.
A couple things. Number one probably is before you send an email, stop. Let's see.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Let it simmer.
Yeah.
Come back here again like, oh, that didn't sound good.
Yeah.
Change it and send it again. Learn that
Okay.
early on.
Okay.
Don't have a problem today. Today's pretty chill. But I think the other one really is, when it comes to like looking future state from a career path, just go after the big ones. Don't I'm not really qualified. I don't care. I'll apply for it anyway. Just go for it.
Yep.
Don't be scared. If they don't like it, they don't like it. If you get an interview, great. At least you can learn from it.
Yeah.
Just go for it. Like early on, more timid. Like you're not really sure your skill set. You're not really sure. But once you start getting traction, you're like, I'm gonna go for everything. I don't care.
Yeah.
Love it.
Do you remember?
Number two?
Say the thing you think you can't say.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
If you're in a room and it feels high pressure and there's senior leaders and you think, oh gosh, I'm going to say something that, is going to rock the boat, people don't want me to, just any number of things about that. It needs to be said more often than not, and just say it.
Let it rip.
Yeah.
Let it rip. Awesome. Any questions out there, team? We got about 5 more minutes here. Yeah, absolutely, brother.
Okay. Heard somebody else talking about this. Something I've been thinking about a lot is being father of a Gen Z child and also being in a somewhat leadership position is not preparing Gen Z for those leadership roles, but what can I do to prepare the organization that I'm with for when that generation becomes Gen Z? What are y'all doing, and what do you think other organizations can do to prepare business for the generation that comes up that I honestly think thinks different?
Boom.
That's a great
Yeah.
question. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're doing anything specifically or approaching it that way. I think there's a lot of discussions that happen at all levels. Even people that I consider, who've only been at our firm for a couple of years. They're like, man, these kids coming in they're weird. Like we don't understand them. And so there's all the way up to the CEO. There's conversations about, and I think it really a lot of times goes back to, like I said, about communication and the way they prefer to be communicated to, instant feedback or short, quippy, text messages with, again, words that some of us might or might not understand. I got a 13-year-old son, so I get a little bit of translation from him. Like, what does this mean? Can you help me out here? There's nothing from Elliott Davis's perspective that we're doing formally to address that. Maybe we should be, but lots of conversations, and I think it's that finding that bridge of that next generation or half generation of leader that is more in tune as well with their communication style and can kind of walk between like us Gen Xers and millennials and Zers and I try to be that, and I fail very often, but especially with my son.
Yeah.
All good. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Absolutely. Eric.
In a culture where we can be easily offended, I think good team requires healthy conflict.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
how do you develop good, healthy conflict among team members who may be apprehensive in today's society?
We published a list last week of words we're not allowed to use. And I've used several of them in many meetings, and I just continue to call myself out. So Like, we are not allowed to use the word powwow. And I've not used the word powwow in years, and suddenly it has flooded into my vocabulary, and I seem to not be able to get away from it.
Is it too jargony? Is that like the?
No, I think it's offensive to Native American culture.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Which it makes sense, but it's not. So now it's in front of me, and now I say it all the time, and then I have to keep apologizing. Go first. Say it, apologize for it, own it, move on. It's okay. I think the other part of it is encouraging that people speak their mind and not get into a sense of you have to display positive emotions all the time. It's okay to feel frustrated that we have a lot of words that we're not supposed to use, and that, but it's going to make us better in the long run. Like, there were ways that we had to grow like this previously. I think it's just doing it by example and like kind of owning your mistakes and letting somebody share a frustration, turn it into I hear you about whatever it is that you're really upset about and not the way it came out. And I actually love when people start to give their negative feedback in a meeting, and I will just pick at it, and I will pull it, and I will pull it, and I'll pull it. And eventually it just diffuses. Like, whatever was underneath that seems to trickle and go away. If you do it with class and with candor and all those things. I think tucking things away or trying to like stifle some of that, it just brews and festers and it gets ugly on the side. So I think it's a good call out that you have to be mindful of it and let it be a part of how you have the conversation.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Talked a lot about sort of like leading across teams or to folks underneath us, but some of the other conversations we've had today feels a little bit around some of the speakers work for companies that weren't necessarily technology companies, and so people that aren't in the technology sector, they want it to run and they don't want to hear about it. So sort of flipping it from, I'm curious to get your perspective on if you have a board or you have others that just want things to run, but we're all pinching pennies or trying to, fight for our people or other things. How do you communicate, not across or down, but up to say, hey, here's what we need. It is valid, even though you can't even see it. Trying to do the sales pitch, business case, everything we talked about today, but to the folks, the powers that be that, at the end of the day might sign off on project X, person Y or whatever. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've got flow control. We because we do a lot of M&As, we have 87 different sub-companies below us. So you have managed 87 former business owners, so 87 folks who think they're top dog. And 87 folks that we have to change a lot on. And so there's a lot of commits, helping them understand why we need to do it. And a lot of the folks don't want to change because it's always worked that way and always been that way. It's always been this way. Why am I going to this system? Why? I don't want to change phone systems. I don't want to change email providers. So having that kind of that conversation and communication with them about what value it adds to them, not necessarily, it can save dollars and cents depending on what it is. There's usually an initial hit to change. But over time, here's what's going to cost you. Here's how it's going to decrease cost, or speed up your time to reach your customer, or get the service guy out there, or allow you to track where your service guy is, so you can divert a service guy to another location, whatever the case may be. But just having those conversations, they understand that you're not doing it just for the sake of change. And I think a lot of what we do in IT is just change management in general, and communicating with those folks who we're impacting the most, that we're doing this change for X, Y, and Z, and here's other things we could do for you. Just let us know which route you want us to go. Let them have some input on that direction. But yeah, it's tough. Our companies that we acquire, mostly small sole proprietorships, then it's a lot of that communication to them. I don't want to change. It's always worked this way. Yeah. My customers are used to this way. I'm not used to using email. I'm just sending them letters. No, I can use email now. So that's right. It's different.
My last gig was on a drawdown, right? So we were bleeding money bad. And we had to make a lot of cuts, and it was just getting really, really honest about what that cut meant. Like, this is the dollar amount, this is what you cut out, this is the risk you have to accept into the organization. You can't have your IT ticket fixed in 24 hours, your SLA is going to go to 72. Tomorrow, when you cut this position and I can't staff anymore, this is the pain you're going to feel. So when you're mad and you come back to me and you don't understand why you can't be at the top of my line, this is why, this conversation right now. Right? And so that sometimes those hard conversations have to happen and the budget gets cut, but at least there's a little bit more openness, transparency. Like, it gives you a sense of we're in this together until we see the ship turn around a little bit. I found that, again, coming back to that communication, not saying it in a nasty sort of way, but just being really clear, like, I'm doing the best I can with what you're giving me, and this is just where the chips fall.
Yeah, we had a situation where, kind of maybe similar to what you were asking about, where we built that trust, or our team built that trust really, and we got to a point where I almost didn't even need to have a meeting to make an investment in cybersecurity or infrastructure. Like, if it was anything that didn't affect how our people worked or how our customers would be served, just go do it. Just, uptime, secure, whatever. Go do it. Here's the money. Anytime I want to talk about big enterprise change that did impact those two areas, it was like, we're not interested, right? And the way I finally have been able to sort of get my foot in the door is by building those relationships with other leaders, maybe same level, maybe even in some cases operationally, but had ear of other senior leaders, and then kind of could create a little bit of a buzz around the idea. Go have lunch with this person, talk about, if we have this platform, we could do this, we could serve our clients better, we could identify these business opportunities. If we didn't have 10 systems all strung together with, string and duct tape, and we had one platform that did all of those things, and just kind of socialized ideas that way. And eventually other people started making enough noise that it got traction. So that's the technique I've used here recently. It's worked pretty well.
Oh, very good. We are officially out of time. I'm sure they wouldn't mind if y'all grabbed them after more questions. And we are just about wrapped up today. But real quick, round of applause for our panelists here. Thank you very much.